then let's start. I'll just blend out the video here. So what we will do today is, as I said, the startup community building. This training is usually thought especially for the people who have participated and graduated in the level 0 certificates of our FLair Academy. If you do not know what this is, I will give you a short introduction within the presentation. If you want to participate in this, let us know and our team will help you. Or this is for community builders. So ideally you have experience with startup communities, startups, you know your stuff. So if you're a part of a startup grind or an angel hack or anything like this, then this is for you, because we will tell you how to build a team and certain other things that are important. In terms of agenda, what we will do is, first of all, to pick you up is startup community organizations. So we will dive very briefly into what different kinds of startup community organizations are out there. Major focus today will be the team. How do you build, grow, and maintain your team as a community organization? Because that's something very crucial. We will look shortly into the impact, how you can make an impact in your startup ecosystem. And we will look also very briefly into startups in general, what you should do and what you shouldn't do as a startup community organization. Is anybody here facing problems with audio or anything like this? Please let me know in the chat and I try to stop. If you have any questions, interrupt me anytime. I try to keep this within a bit more than an hour, but I want to have this interactive. So not just me talking, you can also ask me anytime if something is unclear, okay? No problems. One little apology, we did not realize that the QR code had a limit. So for anybody who tried to get into the webinar with the QR code, it has a limit. We try to change that in the future. All right, so first of all, for those of you who have not been in the level 0 certificate and are not from Startup Grind, a short introduction about myself. I'm Jelte, I'm from Germany, roughly 7.5 years in China. I am currently following a couple of things on parallel. So one thing is I'm the founder of FLair. This is what also this webinar is about. I'm the director for Greater China of Startup Grind, which is the largest startup community organization in the world. Until recently powered by Google for Startups, but this changed because we got other bigger sponsors involved as well, like AWS. So we got this powered by out of the name. I am majorly, so my main role is senior manager and head of community at Innoway. That's my paid job. The others are more voluntarily. As a founder, you never get paid. And at Innoway, what I do there, I'm senior manager for corporate innovation, mostly the international corporates, Fortune 500s. And I'm also advising here local governments on how to build kind of a home for foreign entrepreneurs that want to come to China. And one aspect that is probably also important for this call today, I am one of the founders or co-founders of the German Innovators, which is a regional community organization. And I will explain a bit later what this actually means. All right, as I mentioned, I wanted to give a short introduction where we currently are. You see here community builder. This is the focus that we have today. We have different stages of training for FLair Academy. FLair is the short version for FLair. And usually we pick up the people who have no clue about startup ecosystems and startups at the ecosystem basics. There is a certification class that we also offer. It has tons of readings, and afterwards there is a little test that you have to do. And once you pass the test, usually we will reach out to you. You will get a nice certificate, and you can continue working with us as an ecosystem ambassador later on. We currently have 8 graduates. Some of them are in the call. And usually what we do is we start mapping their ecosystems for them and handing over some insights and prepare them that they become knowledge hubs for their own ecosystems. The gray area here with community builder is something that has no certificate. So this is just the basic training about community building, not with the intention for you to graduate with anything. It's just we have different sessions. This time we will focus mostly on team building. Next time we will probably focus on things like how to close sponsors or how to run events, because that's also very important. And it has also different layers, FLair Academy, but this is something for later. If you're interested, please reach out to us. Okay. So just to pick up those who have not been in the level 0 certification class, we will start first of all with the overview. So usually we explain what a startup ecosystem is. I will not run through everything here because it should be clear for most of the people. The center is usually the startups. That is the center of the startup ecosystem, and you have multiple players. We narrowed it down currently to investors, incubators, accelerators, corporate innovators, government, community organizations, service providers, and universities. We will ignore everybody else. We will only focus on community organizations and their role in the startup ecosystem. So all the subcategories that I mentioned here. Just that you remember, certain players are covering multiple ecosystem areas. So you can be a community organization and can also be a service provider or an incubator or an investor. You can be multiple things. But we try to focus today on the pure versions, not the hybrids. I will explain later on what a hybrid is. Any questions regarding this framework? I will make a very brief pause if anybody has a question. All right, no question. So in general, startup community organizations are covering one of these. I'm not sure if this is 9 or 10 subcategories. It can be an online community organization that is only focusing on this. It can focus on hackathons, like a startup salad. I will show in a bit a couple of examples. It can have only a social impact, so that you will focus on for example, homeless, and you give them like a chance to start their own business. This could be some social impact area. It could be on female empowerment, so that you're trying to help with diversity, that you will help women in leadership, things like this. Nonprofit is usually something that most of the community organizations are, because they are run by volunteers. But I will dive a bit deeper into this aspect later. Self-development is an important factor because a lot of entrepreneurs are looking for areas to grow new skills. So they have to learn everything by themselves. So they also need to learn about how to manage. And a lot of CTOs, for example, they need to learn how to become a good manager, or how to become good in time management and things like this. That's why these subcategories are important. One thing that I forgot to mention is each of these subcategories is tailored towards startups only. So there are a lot of other probably organizations or community organizations out there that are focusing on other things, but these are the ones that are focusing mainly on startups. You will have regional community organizations that are usually focusing on a country. So on France, on Brazil, or on regions. You can have Latin America or Europe or something like this. So supporting entrepreneurs from these areas. They can have a tech focus, so it could be robotics only. It can be STEM, it can be anything like this. A general community for startups which have no focus, just in general. Then LGBTQ, which is a niche. Not too often, not every ecosystem has that, but some have that. And then coding. So the geeks that are like, usually they are linked to the hackathons. But let's run through a couple of examples. So one of the larger community organizations that you will find outside is Girls in Tech. And as you can see here, they're focusing on multiple areas. They're not just one, they're covering a lot of areas. if you compare that to Lowwagon, Lowwagon is a complete online community. They have a tendency towards supporting hackathons. They are in the area of self-development, so usually they're helping founders or employees to learn how to become a coder, and yeah, and that's why they're also focusing on coding. Startup Grind. Sometimes the Startup Grind teams wish there would be more, but they are actually only focusing on general communities for startups. Sometimes, depending on the chapter, they are also touching on certain other areas. So they could be focusing more on tech focus. They could be focusing more on female empowerment. That really depends on the director and the background of the people. Non-profit is with a little question mark, because the bigger the organizations, usually you have a headquarter which is not non-for-profit, they are usually for-profit. And that is the same with Startup Weekend. So you have a headquarter that is for-profit, but usually the chapters are non-for-profit. Be careful, not every chapter of a larger community organization is always non-for-profit. It could be that they're also for-profit. Startup Grant, for example, if you're going to certain cities, like Melbourne, for example, these are not non-for-profit, they are for-profit. Yeah. Usually, so Startup Weekend is a community organization that is linked to Techstars and has a company behind them. They're kind of building a funnel. Startup Weekend is a community organization that should pick up people very early. And the goal is to introduce people to the brand of Techstars, that when the startups grow, they can easily find their way into the network of Techstars. Then I wanted to bring one example for LGBTQ+. Silicon Valley is one of the leading areas where a lot of these organizations are popping up. Lesbians Who Tech is one of these examples. Why I wanted to show this is also that you get maybe familiarized with a couple of brands that you do not know yet. So it could be that you do not know Lilwagen yet, or Girls in Tech, or Lesbians Who Tech. There are tons of organizations out there, and one of our goals with FLair is also that we introduce you to organizations that you do not know yet, that we can potentially bring them to your ecosystem. Because we are supporting ecosystem builders, we are trying to provide as much insights into ecosystems. And when we look at certain ecosystems which are not as developed as others, we try to identify people who want to get involved as community builders, and then we introduce them to potential organizations that they can get involved in, or they can start their own ones. And Lesbians Who Tech, for example, I would like that a similar concept could come to China, that we have this in Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing. This is usually something that you can start in first-tier cities, not so much in second and third-tier cities. If you do not have a Startup Grind or a Startup Weekend or anything like this in your city, let me know, and we will help you to introduce you to these organizations that we can ideally support you with setting up your own chapter. Yeah, just as an example, there are regional community organizations. That's one that I founded. It's regional and nonprofit. German Innovators in China. It's focusing on German startups only, and German innovators and investors. So anybody from the startup realm that is focusing on Germany. These regional organizations should have a focus on a country or on a region. All right. Any questions here regarding this? That's still very simple stuff.
All right. For example, let me ask a question about a Lesbians Who Tech.
Yeah.
You know, some countries have laws that prohibit lesbians and those kind of people. So,
yeah.
In case you want to take these kind of communities to these countries, is it possible, and what then can you do?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So there are certain countries and ecosystems where I would not recommend introducing these community organizations. So there are countries which are more open, some which are not. And if I will not drop now any names, but if a if a person from a certain country would come to me and say like, hey, I would like to support LGBTQ communities and startups, and I look there, and then I would usually recommend them to get involved with other community organizations where it's not that obvious, because sometimes it's against the law, as you said, and you can still make a difference for these groups, but in an indirect way. But that really depends on the country you're coming from, the political system. With Startup Grind, we are in 125 countries, 600 cities, so we know our part regarding which areas are difficult and which ones are not. So I would be very careful introducing you to the wrong community organizations in your chapter. Oh, the green icon. Yeah, that's Startup Weekend. That was a question from Joey. I did not put too many names in there. So SG stands for Startup Grind, not Singapore, even though some people would like to have that. And the bubbly thingy with the worms, that's Startup Weekend. The green one is usually Techstars. All right. One more thing. I am starting a bit more from the basics, because there are some people who just graduated from FLair Academy. So if this is too slow for you, let me know also afterwards. If you want to go much deeper into the material and everything, we can make a level 2 or level 3 thing if you're interested in this. All right. So all of these organizations have a couple of things usually in common. They are inclusive and not exclusive. So the more inclusive they are, the more I count them as a community organization. They are usually run by volunteers, and they are not run by paid staff. As I said before, the larger the organizations are, at one point you will have more paid staff. So Startup Grind, we have currently a team of, I think, roughly 30 paid staff. But that does not mean that that they are not a community organization, because 600 chapters are run by volunteers. Only 30 employees are paid. But this is usually a tendency to see if it is a community organization or if it is a hybrid. The more you're going into the other areas, so the more exclusive you become and the more you have paid staff, usually you're a hybrid. So you're linked towards a brand. One example is companies like China Accelerator, or usually acceleration and incubation programs. They claim to be community organizations, but what they are hybrid community organizations that are linked towards a brand. And it's very exclusive. So they only care about a certain level of startups or certain technologies. They do not care about everyone in the entrepreneurship realm. And what they want is only bring you towards the brand and create a funnel there. Startup Grind, I do not care where you come from. The only thing that we want to do is inspire and help you and educate you about entrepreneurship. That's the same with Startup Weekend. They do not care where you come from. They just want to help you to start learning how to build a business. That is just a very, very simple framework. So if you have a community organization and you ask them like, hey, you're run by volunteers, and they say like, no, we are all paid, then usually you know, oh, that's not a real community organization. Why this is important is, so the more inclusive and the more you're run by volunteers, the more other dynamics you have and difficulties maintaining a team. If you have the cash and if you have the money to really pay your staff, you will not face the problems that we will like dive into in the next slides. Because if you have 10,000, 20,000 RMB per month to spend on staff, you can just hire people, and it's not about the community and doing something for others for free. Right? All right. And that brings me to the core area, because if you're very inclusive and you are running on volunteers, you need a team. You cannot do this alone. There are a couple of exceptions, but most community organizations that I've been working with, they only run if you have a running team. And we will dive into how you build your team, how you maintain your team, and how you grow your team. And in this story, I want to share what I usually encounter Oh, we have a question. 1 second. Why do we need separate community organizations from incubator and accelerator? Why do we need separate community organization from incubator and accelerator? I'm not too sure. Can you specify this question or get to the mic that I get that maybe a bit clearer? Or does anybody understand the question?
Hi, my question is why they are two categories? Why community organization is, they are not part of incubators or and accelerators. Why is it necessary to separate them?
Yeah, because usually the objective is differently. So community organizations have as a greater goal that they do something for the community for free. An incubator and accelerator just usually not have the goal to do something for the community for free. Their goal is to bring you into their program. So there is a hidden purpose in this. You're from China, right?
Yes, I'm from Shenzhen.
So one thing, after working so long in China, one thing that I've realized is that the understanding of community organizations is very, very different in China compared to the rest of the world. The concept of volunteering is perceived differently here in China than it is in the rest of the world. I am working as head of community for Innovate, and one of my roles is to provide building a community. And they also do not understand why people would do things for free just for startups or people who want to get involved into entrepreneurship. This concept is currently based on the international interpretation of startup community organizations and volunteering. And from my point of view, I want to differentiate between pure community organizations, so who do that as a volunteer, and not hybrids who do this for the greater good of their organization and earning money with that. I hope that is clear.
Okay, yes, clear. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so here are a couple of things that usually people throw at my head when they're running a community organization, and I always say the same stuff. So they say like, oh, I have no speakers. Especially at Startup Grind, a lot of chapters, which are in 2nd or 30 cities, they will say like, oh, I have no speakers. Can you pay money to fly people in? No, you don't need that. What you need is a team who has a network to the right people in your ecosystem that you know who's cool, and then you will get speakers. You do not need to pay a shitload of money to get speakers to run a startup community organization. There's another chat, 1 second. Free. Lavrenti, can you explain also that? Sorry, maybe I'm a bit slow today. Please also.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sorry for jumping in. Like you were saying that there are several, like there are communities doing something for free. And for example, there are communities like trying to get money from it. But let's see Startup Grind as an example, and you guys or like any other chapter, they are required to sell tickets for the events, right?
Yeah.
Which means that you're actually not doing it for free. So basically, please specify. I'm not saying that is wrong or good, but we kind of just to get everybody on the same page and get the understanding of the term free.
Yeah. So the term free does not mean that you do everything for free. So you cannot say yes to everything. Startup Grind, we decided to charge ticket money to actually, first of all, have a barrier of entry that we only attract people who really want to come, and that we can, so the money that we get, we put that directly into food and drinks. No team member gets paid from the ticket money. So everybody's doing that for free, but we have the ticket price as a barrier of, to entry, and in order to provide actually more value through food and drinks. In China, usually the expectation is the event is for free, food and drinks is for free, and like they're getting the largest speakers. But this is usually not how it works. So in the rest of the world, usually you have to provide a certain like level of like food and drinks, and then you have to pay for that. And if you do not have sponsors, you need to charge money. Usually when you get sponsorship money, then you can make the tickets for free or not. Sometimes the money that goes into tickets is also used in order to build or giving back to founders, that this is donated back or anything like this, but this usually never goes in the pockets of the volunteers. All right. Another one is nobody knows us. Also, this is for usually those who are starting their own community organization without having a big brand. That is the biggest problem. You need to get a team to get the word out. If you're only doing this as one person, you can only hustle so much. So get yourself a team. We have no sponsors. Coming back to money, a lot of volunteer organizations are dependent on this. You only get this if you're doing a good job, if you get good speakers, if you are regularly doing things, and you only get that if you have a team. So team is kind of a solution for everything. This one is for the chains. So something like Startup Grind or Startup Weekend. Our headquarters is not supporting us enough. One thing that I always say at Startup Grind is if you cannot prove that you can do a job as a community builder, and a community builder starts with finding local resources, building a community with the local resources, and not like spending tons of money from a big company and building something with that, then the headquarter will not see you. So it starts with the team. You need to build the team. And the moment you start building something that was not on the radar of this headquarter, then they will see like, oh, damn, that's something really cool going on in I don't know, Tianjin or whatever. And then they will say, oh, that's really cool. How about like we will fly over, or next time we know a speaker comes over, then they will say something. If you don't do that, you will not get that. And that is only possible with a team. Very important factor, you cannot be a community organization if you're not regularly doing something. And regularly doing something usually means you do an event. So one of the similarities that all the community organizations have, they usually do events, may it be online or offline. And if you do not do that once per month, I do not count them as a community organization. So those who are doing only anything like in a quarter or every 6 months, there's something like an event organizer, but not really a community organization. You can stem this if you have a good team. If you're only one person, it will burn you out because event management is a lot of work. Our community is too small. It is called community building. So again, you need to start building things from scratch. If you are a builder yourself, you can start, but the first thing that you do is you get a team on board, and that will help you to build further. So also here, the community will only grow if your team grows. I'm too busy. One of the death sentences of most chapters from Startup Grind and a lot of other community organizations is, we find a perfect person who has the knowledge about startups, but they're too busy to do events. And they're like, you never reach them. Get yourself a team. I was lucky enough to make this decision very early. So Startup Grind Beijing was formerly my chapter. And I decided very, very early to scale a team up to 20 people. And with that, we were capable of still surviving when I was too busy doing my work. So the community organization and the community could still thrive while I was not available. So get yourself a team. And last but not least, stop whining, get your shit together and get yourself a team. That is super, super important. So if you do not have a team of 4, 5, 6 people, this is for you. And now let's talk about how we start. Any questions so far? All right. So let's start. Oh, Dave, yeah, go ahead.
All right. So my question is, for you to qualify to be, let's say, a good a community, you need to at least have an event once in a month. Or how frequently are you supposed to hold an event? Let's say
we will explain that during the slides. So I will tell you at what level you will be a good community.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So the start. So for those of you who experience community builders, or those of you who are new, it doesn't matter, because at one point you started as one person. So either it is you will apply for becoming startup grant director in your city, you start as one person, or you want to start your own community organization, you start as one person. The thing is, you're alone, you have no friends, and nobody knows you. So it doesn't matter if you have a big brand behind you or if you are creating your own organization. This is something that you need to change. So from this initial start point, no matter if you have a big name or not behind you, nobody will know you, you have no friends. And that's really the case. Like when I started, you're just alone. There are tons of disadvantages. So you can start doing a community organization like this, and a lot of people will do this as a one-person show. But what will definitely happen is you will be super stressed out, even if you're a multitasker, but usually you do this as a volunteer, so next to your job, so you will be stressed out. The event quality will be low because you need a certain amount of people to secure that you can deliver something good of value, that the speaker feels good, that the attendees feel good, and that you actually make an impact. It is not fun because you will be stressed out. You will not deliver anything cool, so you will just like whining all the time that this sucks. So for us, it took 2 years that it became fun, kind of. All the responsibilities are on you. If you drop out and you're sick, the community is dead. So a couple of other points. Advantages, none. Like seriously, none. One thing that you do in this time is not to start doing events like per se, but learning about what it takes to start a community. So you need to learn everything from scratch. You need to learn how you get speakers, how you build your website, how you create content, how you make sponsorship management. All of these things you need to learn. At this stage, very often experienced people, what they think is, oh, I will get volunteers and they will do all the work. And this person does not know how to do it themselves. That's the biggest mistake you can do. You need to know everything that runs in your organization by heart. If you do not know it, your team will not follow up and they will not learn, they will not step up. So make sure you know everything and you learn. Once you get that, you can start getting a team together. So if you're looking at the output, if you're lucky and you're really good, then you will get 1 event per month done. But it's shit. I have never seen any community organization which does like monthly events and they're really good by one person. All right. So usually after 1 to 3 months, so sometimes you start already with a pack of friends. In this case of scenario, just ignore what I'm saying until that stage, but we can start a bit later. But usually after 1 to 3 months, after you've familiarized yourself with what your goal is or the community organization that you took over. So if you apply for Startup Weekend Leadership, after 1 to 3 months, you get a person. And at that time, you should build a team. These people are some people, not necessarily leaders, not necessarily having the same vision or idea about community building as you, and you do not know yet if they're qualified. Still in this stage, after 3 months, nobody knows you, you're not having any impact, and honestly, you have no idea what you're doing. This does not count for the people. So there was in one chat a person who said that he's like 15 years with startups and whatever. So if you're that kind of person and you're getting 2 or 3 more people with the same experience on board, that's a different story. I'm not talking about the average person. How you usually get these 2 people is how I did that. I just asked my colleagues. I just asked them like, hey, I have this cool new gig, Startup Grind. It's really amazing. Do you want to join? They just said like, yeah, sounds cool. Much better than my paid job. Let's just start it. Just go to your friends and family and just ask 2 random people to join. You need to exchange with friends or strangers in order to grow. So do that as early as possible and get them on board and see if they're a right fit. Still, there are no advantages at that stage. Where you want to get to is that you grow to a really, really big team. So as I said before, you do not know yet if these people are the right fit. I had to change my first team on a regular basis after 3 to 4 months because I just realized they want to volunteer, but they're not there, or they wanted to take advantage of the community organization because there is Google in the name and they want to earn money. So this is something that you probably would need to learn first. If they have the same understanding of this community organization as you, if they want to really do something for the greater good or the motivation of the community organization, or if it's like another thing. This takes time, but you need to learn the different kind of characters quickly, so get as many people involved as possible. Very important, already at this stage, try to stick to diversity. One of the biggest mistakes that I see very often is a guy gets this like leadership for this chapter and he gets 2 guys involved. And at one point it will be this, I don't know, white male leadership club, or the other way around. It's like women, the same story. And then you have like, this is a barrier for most people. So once you start getting your leadership, like in only men or women, this becomes a barrier. So start already with diversity quite early. As I said before, in the first month, learn everything yourself. What you do now is you train them on everything. So the 2 new people, you need to train them on everything that you know, that they can kind of take over. Let them take the maximum responsibility, that you can become a bit strategic about things, and you see if they're really taking things over, if they're a quick learner, and if they are willing to take ownership of tasks. This is the most important thing that you need to do. If you see they're taking over, you can already start at that point to reach out to media organizations, potential partners or sponsors. Do not try to go on the early stage of 1 or 3 people to go to big sponsors because you cannot deliver on anything. So be sure that first of all, they learn everything from you. You see that they can take ownership, and then you start small. We started with 1 media partnership after 3 people, and we grew this over 1 to 3 months. And with that, afterwards, we realized we can take more. So be very careful with this. You need to reflect. Certain people are better at leadership. Certain people are better at being techie. Certain people are hustlers. They like to be on the stage and stuff. Reflect a lot with yourself. Especially extroverts who are hustlers and want to go out all the time. They tend to forget that they need to plan out things, that they need to encourage others to take up. They're neglecting introverts in their team. Sometimes just take a step back, ideally train your team, see how they are taking over the leadership if you're giving them room. So this is something that you need to figure out. So at this stage, probably you will be able to do 1 event, but most likely still not. You can focus a bit on quality because the core will be handed over to the 2 leaders. And you will learn how to actually manage their first team. This is an advantage that you can get through community organizations. This is what I tell usually young graduates. If they do not waste like 10 years of their time in a random company to get the first management license or whatever, a community organization can give you this in a very short while. So if you get like a startup grant license for your city, you need to get a team, you will learn management. And this is what a very safe environment, nothing you have to lose, so try it out. Yeah, I will not drop into all the bullet points because that will take too long. It's also meant as a bit as reading, so you can read afterwards through it. I will share the slides afterwards. Any questions so far here? Right. One thing that you can do when you reflect, and you should do that better early than later, see if you're a leader. If people follow you and they start replicating what you do and it looks good, you're usually good at leading. If people are not doing their stuff and you feel you're working against people, you're not a leader. You should consider actually handing this over to somebody who's better. You cannot really judge based on this small group if anybody is a good leader or not, but you can monitor a bit if the two people that you hire or like got into the team have the tendency towards leading. How you can do this is figuring out if they want to do more, if they need a team. So let's say they are ambitious, they want to do like 2 events in a month. They say, I cannot do it, I need to get 2 or 3 people, let me get out and get them. This is a sign that this person is meant to be like leading. There are a lot of talkers out there, be careful about that, but usually this is something that you can try out and see how they deliver. If this is the case and they show leadership skills, be honest to yourself, step back, give that to the person who's the better leader. Don't be this prick and say like, oh no, I need to be the director or whatever because I'm the director. Yeah, no entitlement in community organization. Oh, not so yellow there. Doesn't matter. Okay, so this is, if you're good, you can do that within 3 months. So this is the scenario with this one person, 15 years of startup experience, and then getting 2 friends involved who also have 10 years of startup experience. That would be kind of the case. So you have a leadership board, really amazing people. And usually when you're doing already your first events, you can, at your events, ask after the events are over, you just like, hey, we're looking for volunteers. You can send out JDs. You can write on social media that you're looking for volunteers. If you are running a community organization that is usually on diversity or female empowerment, social impact or something like this, it's very, very easy to get volunteers. It is really, you do the event, you get a good audience, you just say, we need volunteers, people come. And that is the stage. If you have 3 good people right now, you have figured out that these have leadership capacities, they have learned everything that you know, and now is the time that they want to do more. Like, this is the time to get more people involved. And start with as many as you can handle. Usually 6 to 10, because you will have a certain quota of people not following up. I need to drink something. In this scenario, now they become good friends. So you can already say after 4 or 5 months that these are good friends or they're from formerly good friends. And you have some people who sometimes just help out and you do not know why. So in my case, when I started Startup Beijing, I did not reach out to people and said like, I'm looking for volunteers. They were just strangers coming to me and saying, hey, I'm gonna help you now here with the chairs. That's Tim from Georgia. I'm not sure if he's listening or anybody from Georgia. And at some events, just random strangers came in or they brought friends and said like, oh, it's cool what you do, can I help out? I don't know why, I have no idea why they came. That might happen, just take them, just like see why they want to join you. And this might be something that you can replicate and then you get more cool people. This person that randomly showed up, Tim, he's still part of Startup Grind Beijing. So that's a good thing. This is where some people already start knowing you before they didn't. And this is where you should take advantage of getting people on board. Usually if you start, so if you're a newbie to Startup Grind, this is the first 3 to 6 months. You're excited, you have your first 3 to 5 events, you have a good leadership team, and you think now you know your stuff. That's still not the case. Still trying to be humble and learn more, because now starts the shit of really looking through the people and learning what it takes to build a team. These 6 people, 2 of them will succeed and stay with you, the others are not. And your job is to look through that. And also in terms of event quality, you do not know yet how a good event is run unless you're a professional. But usually this webinar is not for people who are like super professional. Just that you know, in the future, what I also plan to do is get in experienced community builders that they share their examples of their chapters. So I would like to have Bronze, for example, from Startup Weekend. I would like to have Grace from Startup Grind Shenzhen, maybe Jan, also former Startup Grind person, that they can share a bit with the audience what they did, what works and what doesn't, so that this becomes more like a sharing session from others, not just from me. So now you have a leadership team of 3. So it might be that you formally had to exchange one of the people, but let's just assume you have now 3 people. They all have learned their stuff. You have 3 leaders. That means you can focus now on other stuff. You can focus on quality outreach to speakers. You can focus on sponsors. You can start rotating actually the responsibilities, which is a good thing because, as I said before, fun is an important part. It should be one of the major pillars of your organization. You can only have fun if you're not stressing yourself out. What you could do at this stage, for example, is you have 3 leaders, you have 6 people, you do 3 events per month. It's crazy, it's possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. But what you could do is you start rotating. So first month, leader A starts doing an event. You have time, you can prepare. In second month, leader B does the event. Third month, leader C. This gives you 3 months of preparation. This will level up any kind of community organization and gives you so much power. What you can also do is that you rotate kind of roles. So it could be that HR becomes a role for one person. So 1 month HR is done by one, and they need to get volunteers. And then after 3 months, you take over. So that you diversify a bit the portfolio of tasks that you have. And that makes the entire thing much more interesting, actually. So you have now a couple of advantages. Yeah, so probably this one is important. Depending on the strength of your team, this constellation can be very agile and powerful. So this could be the end constellation of a good community organization. A core team of, let's say, 5 people. They're all really knowledgeable and they can handle a lot of stuff. They work well, but there's still the risk of, if you're dropping out or any of your directors drop out, there is a third of the weight that will that be on your shoulders. And there is the risk of you could lose your balance quite quickly. So I believe in the massive army approach. So you need to get actually an extra layer in there. And we dive into this in a bit. So this is already where you deliver the highest quality of monthly events. You will build a very strong network because you have now the time to talk to people. In my first events, when I had to get the speaker, do the event management and everything myself, I always wanted to talk to people, but I never had time because I was doing event management and speaker interviewing and everything myself. At this time, you can let the people who know their stuff out to the networking area and they can start talking to people. And that's where you make quality introductions. That's where you get quality people, sponsors, and so on and so on. So this is the right time to get sponsors. And this is also the time where the first people will start approaching you if they can add something to your community. So speakers will come easily to you. This point of, I have no speakers, that is where people will come to you because they see you are already a team that knows what you're doing, and now they want to be part of this. This takes 3 to 6 months to get there. Sometimes you never get there because people do not decide to take a leadership team. So please get a leadership team. Okay, for us, this was kind of the former constellation. And I had too much work at one point. I nearly burned out because my work got too ambitious at the consulting company that I was working for. And Startup Grind kind of died because I was still a major driver in this. And what you need to do in this case is figure out what you need to do that your community organization does not die. Because if your community organization is at risk at dying when you're not there, you're not a community organization yet. Because a community organization should be something that runs by itself, that people, it's like an organism that will continue. Doesn't matter if you're there or not. It's good if you're there, but it will continue if you're not. And in this stage, I realized I need to have more people and I need to train the next level of leaders. So that is what you do here. So in this constellation, you look at the 6 people in this scenario and you see who wants to do more. And you just need to listen and figure out what these people want to do. So it could be that one person says, oh, I want to start writing a newsletter. You don't have a newsletter yet? Sounds great. You just tell them, okay, you take over. That's now your role. And sometimes these people will also say, I want to create like more content and maybe I can get a small team together with, for example, one constellation that came up with, they wanted to do a podcast. It failed, but still this person said like, I want to do it. They pulled together a little team, the entire team failed. But it's a good try because you can do trial and error and see what happens. Be open to anything anyone brings in. So it could be that one person will say, I want to create an app. And with that, I don't know, do monthly postings about events in the community. From this, actually, businesses can arise. So it could be that this person has this idea. They will get the team together. He hates his job. He will quit his job and then start a business with this. So do not underestimate the dynamics of the people that come to you and they have a certain idea where your startup community organization can go to. And this does not matter what kind of community organization you belong to. So there can be in a startup weekend, and there is a person who wants to build an app for your local ecosystem. That can be in, I don't know, regional organization or whatever. Listen to your people, empower them, and give them the rights to get a bigger team. Okay, so you have made more close friends and some people helping out and you start understanding why. So now you slowly start understanding why the people are actually coming to you, if it's your personal, if it's your co-leader, if it's like the organization, the purpose you're doing, the events, the speakers, you will learn this. More people start to know you, which is a good thing, but I will tell also later that it is a bad thing. And you start realizing what needs to be done to do a better job. Why it is also a bad thing that people start to get to know you is if you linger at this stage, or especially at that stage, is people will assume that your community organization is you. So for a very long time, people expected that Startup Grind Beijing is Yelta. And that is not true. It's not me. It's like an army of people behind me, and I was working very, very hard to get this picture out there. And this is where very often, if the people have not empowered a co-leadership, you will create a certain kind of dictator role. So there is one person, everybody knows this one person, there's an army of people working for him, but nobody knows them. And this is something that you should never get involved in because, yeah, nobody wants a one-man show. And it's a too high risk that if this one man drops out, that your entire community organization dies. So especially for regional managers, not sure if anybody is here, but if you're managing 30, 40, 50 chapters in a region, and you have this dictator kind of style, you have one person, you don't know any team or whatever, there is a high risk that if this person drops out, the entire city dies for you. You have no knowledge, so be careful with that. Always make sure that you encourage the people to build teams, to have co-leaders, right? Any questions? Okay, I need to do a bit quicker. Yeah, so one thing that you can do is you start listening to what people want. But one thing that you can also start doing is now being more strategic. Even though everybody is a volunteer, you can start building a company out of this based on volunteers. So usually a company needs marketing, needs HR, needs finance, needs BD and things like this. And you can start actually building this. That is in the next slide. Sorry for that. One disadvantage that's very important to mention in this stage, additionally to the other ones that I mentioned, is it's chaotic. You do not have clear hierarchies of how do I get in, how do I grow, can I become a co-leader, can I not? So you see here second level leadership, So you see here, people who are not leading anybody. This person does not know if he can be here. This person does not know that he's here and he's leading these people. There's a lot of confusion happening. And you need to now start to step back, letting these two co-leaders taking over, and you make sure you will understand the dynamics of how things go. And that is different at every organization. That depends on how many events you do. That depends on if you're a startup weekend, doing an event every 2 months or so on. So every organization there is different. But you need to understand to learn what are your dynamics, that you are on top of it, and not that you're giving room for chaos. Because if it's chaos, people will start interpreting this organization by themselves. They will take over and leading the ship in the wrong direction, and you just crash. You don't want that. And this is what I said. You can start now creating actually your first corporate kind of style. So you know you need new volunteers. So how about you just create an HR session and they will be in charge with one person to get new volunteers on board. You have one event management person who will get people who do the event management for you. The more layers like this you get, the more volunteers you get, the more likely it is that these people want to step up and take responsibility. The more potential leaders you have identified in your organization, the more likely it is that it will survive. But at this stage, it's very important that you encourage people to do more, to take more leadership. And that is actually only possible if you step back. But you should step back to the right person. So if you're creating this kind of organization, this person who is in charge of HR knows HR pretty well, and they're like very keen to do so, but they do not know anything about event management. So one thing that you can start doing is this person says, hey, I want to be a co-leader. You just tell them, that's cool. How about you just take over event management for 3 months and show us what you got? If he does that, he's a step closer to that. Then maybe it's community management or something like that. You can do one additional stage or anything like this. And with that, you already see if a person is ready to do that. That will bring positive dynamics into your team, because you will not do only the same job for 2 years. That's boring. People want to have different responsibilities. And this is also the right time where you can decide if you want to exchange yourself, your co-leaders, if you need a fourth one, a fifth one, because you can see how much they really want it, right? Usually when you're at this stage, you should be capable of doing larger conferences. So if you're aiming towards a hackathon, you can do a 300 people hackathon with that. If you're aiming towards a demo day or a conference, you can do a 500 people conference, not before. Know your limits. If you're like a 5 people show, you cannot do a 500 people conference. That's impossible unless you have a big budget. So this is where you also can get crazy. You can start doing 2 events. That's what we did at Startup Grind. We started doing like every month 2 events. And with that, we got a lot of sponsorships, more team members, more dynamics, and we actually grew. So that was quite positive. And you can do that in any community organization. So as you can see, the goal as a community organization is kind of grow your team, grow the amount of events, and grow the maximum kind of what you could do potentially with events and people, because that will secure sponsorships, people, network partners, and stuff like this. With that, you have a base. This takes 1 to 2 years. I think Startup Grind Beijing needed 1.5 years to get there. Yeah, so what you did before with making a secure pipeline for rotating maybe the leadership, that is still one of the disadvantages that you have. So if you're now relying on an HR and HR drops out, then you have to train anybody or you have to take it over yourself. So now the next level is how you make this rotation process work in HR or in event management. So for that, you need to have more people again. Yeah, fun. I just see that here. is still one point where it will probably not be as present. So if you're very ambitious and you want to get to the 500 people conference, this is not fun yet because you're now a machine. You start working like crazy. And since there are risks of people dropping out and you have to take over the work again, it's not fun yet. So either you go all in or you don't. So I would recommend you, if you're here, go further and grow further, or you stay here. These are the two scenarios that I would recommend you, nothing in between. Now coming to the end game, because that's where I want to bring everyone, and I hope to see that a bit more often with community organizations that we work with. That's the professional team constellation. 2 years plus, usually you have multiple areas of specialization. So it could be that one is focusing on sponsorship, one on finance, one on content, whatever, and they all have a big team where you have followers. One thing that you also can do already here is that you help the people. Ross is, I think, also in this team. And what we did is we usually ask the people, like, what do you want to do? Sometimes they say, like, I want to do HR because in the future I want to be like in recruitment or HR. So these people will take over the leadership. And with that, they actually get potentially introductions to corporates where they can start their jobs. And we, since we have a good network, now help these people to get jobs. And this is a benefit that you need to tell people, that you get experience as a manager, you get experience leading a team, working with different people on entrepreneurship, on something really exciting. You are highly hireable. So people want you. And this is something that you can create with a community organization that is run by volunteers, not to underestimate. Yeah, so you're not alone anymore. Everybody knows you. You have a family now. So for me, it started feeling like a family, I think, after 2 years. Because I knew kind of like 15 people or 20, everybody like really well. I knew where they're coming from. And this is a family feeling. You can drop out for 2 weeks, 2 months, you come back, it's still all the same. And this is when you start becoming an organism, because you have a family, everybody has the same mindset, and you start creating your first, culture. Before, it's hard to create a culture, but now you have it. And now you're a startup community machine. Just imagine you're a startup weekend and you're that size, you can do 1 startup weekend every month, no problem. If you're a startup grind, you can do 2 to 3 events per month. Everybody will know you. You're the leading community organization in your city. Anybody can do this. It's just about building the team. Yeah, tons of, let's see, what's the disadvantages? I forgot what I wrote there. So if you're this dictator kind of type and you want to be in the center of attention, this is not good for you, because now people do not care so much about you anymore. They see a lot of other people. But I see that more as an advantage. But if you're that kind of person, it's bad. Yes, you need to make room. And this is something, reflect again. You need to know when to let go. You want to let people have this advantage of learning how to lead larger organizations. If you've managed this and you've built this after 2 years, just let go and go to the next stage and do something differently. Support them as a mentor. One good example is Florian, the former Shanghai co-director from Starbucks. He's just jumping around from chapter to chapter, telling them what to do. He doesn't need any title, but he's teaching everyone how to do it. And he loves just the community. This is something that you should do. Just give room for the new people and make sure you get really capable and amazing people on board. One thing, since you will be now at this stage where you get a lot of sponsorship, a lot of money, and you still want to be a nonprofit kind of organization, you need to get some kind of a finance involved, that you know at what point you have too much money and you need to give it back to people. So get a stable finance department or a person who has this kind of role that you get the money out. Yeah, here's the example. It's outdated. Startup Grind Beijing is running a bit differently right now, and especially through the coronavirus, things have changed, but I still kept it there because at one point this was what it was like. So we had 3 leaders, 1 director, 2 co-directors. We had departments, community management, marketing, data, event management, HR. And HR was taking care of a certain filter process. So we had different stages on how people can get in. Community Jedi younglings, we just put them in the group. And if people become active, this is for us a reason to get them in. So these people here are active, they get to the next level. What that means is you need to let them come to you. So they want to get to you. They want to work with you. That's a sign that they really want to be part of the volunteer organization. Because you have too many people who say they want to, but then they don't do anything. If they act and rejoin, then it's a good sign to get them in. And in this level, usually they should get to know certain people and already know like, oh, I want to join marketing or I want to join event management. If they have these tendencies, they're coming back, then you can add them to the teams. So there's an entire structure to that. You can replicate that, get your own names out there. If you want to know like, if your current organization runs well, we can also have a one-on-one. You walk me through what you currently do and I maybe give you some advice about what you can do better. Yeah. Any questions here? Very important. Do not get people from here to here. People should have a certain development path. If you get people from here to direct leadership or from bottom to HR, whatever leadership, you will discourage everybody else. So they need to earn their space. They need to be known by everybody else. If this is not the case, you will create problems within the team. Any questions? Right. Right. Coming a bit to impact, it depends on the leadership. So, and the team, as I said, the more team you have, the more impact you will have. So there is the dictator kind of leadership. I can just give you a hint. Go to Startup Grind, click through 10 cities. You will find 1 city at least where 1 person is shown. These are the dictators. They're in every organization. Try to like not get too much involved with them, and don't become one, because the impact that you have is like minimum. There are some people who are really, really good, but again, there is too much of a risk that if they drop out, the entire organization goes down. As I mentioned before, you will have the female or male pack. Don't have these barriers. It's like a gentleman club or whatever. People want to get in. You're exclusive. You're not inclusive. That is usually the sign that you give if you're only like one gender. Don't do that. Try to be open. Even if you're like a female empowerment organization, just get a man involved. Doesn't hurt, right? These organizations usually have an impact of a bit more than the dictator, but still not much. But there are exceptions, of course. So if all of these are like exceptionally good people and I don't know, all hustlers, maybe it's like a 3+. Then you have the task force. Usually there, I expect that these people know what they're doing. They have 10, 15 years of experience with startups. Their impact is usually very strong. That can be up to 5, 6+, because, yeah. So what I've seen from organizations where 5 to 6 people are visible, these are good organizations and these people know what they do. Yeah, but again, biggest impact, I think, and what I've seen so far are armies. Just get 20 people out there. And because all of them will have their own focus areas. It could be that you have a designer there. They will create their own designer bubble with network there. It could be that you have a photographer. They will have their own area there. It could be that you have a restaurant person there. They will have their own impact there. So the more people you have in there, the more impact you will have. So depending on the leadership, really you already decide how much impact you will have. Go to the right, not to the left. Very simple rule. Here are a couple of things also important for the impact. Be regular, not irregular. So try to do something on a monthly basis. And if you're facing these things like you do not get speakers, you're too busy, remember about these slides because it's all about the team. So the one on the right, team versus no team. If you're irregular, it means you do not have a team. Or it could just mean that you're not really interested in what you're doing, and then be honest to yourself and the organization and just drop it and say, that's not right. And do not take more than 3 months. I hate people who are taking a license from an organization and they are in this for 6 months, not doing any event. I would like to strangle them. Cannot, so yeah. Don't do that. Be honest to yourself. If you haven't done an event in 3 months, you suck. Get out of this. You're not a community builder. Yeah, network versus dictator. So network means you have a big group, an army of people. You have a network effect. That's what I said with different focus areas versus the dictator. The dictator, even if it's like the craziest hustler whatsoever, he does not have the capacity to talk to all the people. Just imagine you have 100 people at your event, and you have one person with things like he's the king, can only talk to the most important ones. Well, it seems people can write on this. Interesting. Yeah, so if you have 20 people and you have 100 attendees there, everybody can talk to everyone and you will know everyone. So become a network and not a dictator. Here just again as the reminder, be inclusive, not exclusive, run by volunteers, not paid staff. One mistake that happens very often is people start paying volunteers. This also creates a lot of frustration because then people think like, oh, that person gets paid for this, so they should do everything. Especially like, I think organizations like Angel Hack, they have a very low level of people get already very early paid. And that discourages volunteers to do something for free. Have the rule, everybody does it for free. So even now, as a China director, Startup Grind, I'm not getting paid. And that just creates clarity because it's better that everybody knows I'm doing this for free for my own motivation. I want to do it. I like this. So yeah, don't pay staff unless you have to. Interesting why this is still here. Super shortly, and then we go to the Q&A. Know what kind of a community organization you are. So this is also from the level 0 certification class, the stages of the startups. Usually a startup community organization covers only the left. So the soon-to-be founders and the early stage founders. They do not get as much recognition as other bigger players. So Plug and Play or China Accelerator, which are usually here, they get much more recognition than anybody who's here. But please realize you are not specialized on unicorns. You're not specialized on IPOs. What you do is you create a funnel from people who know nothing to they become early stage founders. And this is super, super important. All of the community organizations are usually focusing on this. So this is something that you can do and that you should do. You should focus on this. Do not start to think about how you can serve startups like this. Because actually here as a kind of feeling, the more you're to the left and you're a community organization, the more inclusive you usually are and the more you're run by volunteers. The more you move to the right, the more you have to have special knowledge about the startups that you're actually serving. So here, you do not know if you create an IoT startup, a healthcare startup, an edtech startup, could be anything. The first thing they need is they need a CTO, a CMO, whatever, and this is what you can handle. But at this stage, it's different. If you have a health tech startup and they're A round and they want to grow, you cannot help them with anything. Let go. Let them just do their thing. The only thing that you can do is talk to them and ask them if they want to start inspiring again the soon-to-be founders. This is the only thing that you can do as a community organization. So here you serve the people, and here you get the speakers from. So Startup Weekend, get your mentors from here. Aloha again, it can also be like freelancers and stuff coming from here. Startup Grind, get your speakers from here. If you're really good, you get them from there. That's it. There are some community organizations, and entrepreneurship organization is one of them. They are much more exclusive than others. You have to have an annual revenue of, I think, 1 million RMB or above, or no, profit. I think it's profit. But this, from my point of view, disqualifies them as a sheer community organization, because they are also taking monthly memberships of a couple of thousands, and that positions them, from my point of view, more as a chamber of commerce for community, for startups. So I position them here on purpose, because actually many of the startups that are at entrepreneurship organization are like 10 years old. Yes, they are founders, but they are more tending towards business. They are not crazily growing, and that's why they have more of a tendency towards going here. And they're very exclusive, so not everybody can get in there. If you're like a one-man show and you want to start a startup, you go there, they will say, thank you, come back in 3 years. And they have a lot of paid stuff. But yeah, that's... Any questions for that slide? Okay. So why I wanted to show this is actually reflect on yourself, know what community organization you are, stick to your turf, don't get involved in other things that you are not supposed to do. So don't, what you can do is, if you think you have the guts to take over a certain industry, let it be mobility or whatever, and you can serve corporate clients, try to build your own, like not startup, but consulting business and serve them. Do not try to make a startup grind a consulting industry. With that, you will disrupt everything. People will lose their motivation and stuff. Do not get there. So you can make money with that, but separate it, please, because that is where you should be. Right. Before we come to the end, this is FLair basic certification class. If you do not know how to do it, reach out to our team. I will show you later on who it is. These are the stages that you have to go through. So we need to know who you are. We want to know who you are because we try to get involved personally with you. Do the definition test, do the reading first, do the definition test, mapping test, motivation test, and then you get this nice certificate. And here, we help you to get involved with the community organizations that you're looking for. Yeah, that's not so important. So shortly, the team, me, Sabrina, Fang, Leo, Fabienne, Emir. There were 2 people more before, Jagi and Jorge, but I put them out because they're currently on leave. And as a startup, you need to show that people are actively doing something. But hopefully they will be soon back. So this is the team. We will do the mapping for you. Fabienne is the CTO, building something cool on the side. Leonardo makes things pretty. Emil and Fang are currently doing the mapping for those who are graduating level, or getting into the ambassador training. And Sabrina helps with the process here. And I'm there if you need anything. So especially if you are running a community organization, you want some advice, I'm happy to help. And just write me, let me know how I can support, and yeah, always happy to help. That's it. Thank you. We have a short time for Q&A. Governor Stewart raised the hand, whoever that is. Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah. So just wanted to just ask a few questions. Creating a community around a brand. What are some of the advantages of doing that? So let's say I have a brand into, let's say, maybe providing IoT, and then maybe I wanted to create a community around that kind of like-minded people. Now, what are the advantages of doing that rather than going general?
Yeah, so I would not say it's a brand, it's a technology. And then you're like in the subcategory of technology, startup, community organization. And there are some. So there are community organizations for IoT. And this makes sense if you have a background in this area and you're deeply interested in this. And very often what makes sense is, let's say you professionally work in this area, but you want to get involved with people starting something new also in the area of your profession. then you can start creating your own community organization that does stuff for free. You can use it as a funnel to get business to your own business. But in general, you will specialize on the technology IoT that you're excited about, motivated about, and you just try to surround yourself with other people that have a similar interest. That makes sense because certain people are more into coding and they only want to talk to geeks and coders and not to like the average person who is interested in funding. So create your own groups, and with that, you still can create the same flow as I shown you with the team. So you start with 1 or 2 people, and especially with something like IoT, there is a lot of potential if you're creating community organizations, but you must be good and you should have the professional background. Did I answer your question?
Thank you. Yeah, sure. I was also trying to assess the impact of the performance of that community on the brand itself. You know, maybe if the community isn't performing well, that might maybe impact the brand itself, you know.
Get please the name brand out. So the community would be about IoT. The brand is kind of, it could be IoT Warriors Beijing, just a crazy name. That's the brand. If you do not know your stuff and you know nothing about IoT, this brand will suck. So you only specialize if you really know your stuff and you're a professional in this. So if you're specialized in KOL marketing, you can create a community about this, but you need to know your stuff. That's the easier part with general communities because you do not need to know your stuff. You can just start doing something and you become a generalist. And we work together with specialized communities who are focusing on certain areas. And then we become a funnel sending them to you. I never claim to be an expert in any of these industries. If you are an IoT, you can have a chat and then we will provide this to you. So if you're specializing as a community organization in a technology, be kick-ass in this.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. That works.
Any other question?
Yeah, I want to ask, based on the training that we have today, can we then say that the community organization are the most single important player in the ecosystem? Because when you look at them, it looks like they do a lot of work from the business life cycle, from the soon to be to the early stage. So can we say that a lot of emphasis and then resources should be channeled to the community organization?
Let me answer that like this. I think they are not getting the credits they deserve. They are not the most important players, but they are very crucial and very important. And most people neglect this. So they do not want to give Startup Grind or Startup Weekend the credit for creating startups. This credit usually goes to angel investors, to incubators and accelerators who are in the later pipeline, who make things visible. But we are the ones who are recycling people who are failing in their business. We are inspiring people to go the next step. This is what we are trying to do, that we get more resources to the community of the organizations, because the funnel has to start somewhere. And this somewhere is something that most people forget about. And that is also why we are putting so much emphasis on the training for community organizations, because the stronger they are, the stronger the ecosystems are, and you actually can start a funnel. If you do not have this, it's very hard to start startups. It does not mean you cannot start startups at all, because certain industries create startups at a later stage, and they do not need so much communities, especially in professions like healthcare, pharmaceuticals, supply chain, anything like very technical, robotics and so on. These areas do not need an early stage community, because they can arise usually from universities. What you have there is 4 or 5 PhDs who are experts in the area. They get a patent in their area of expertise. They start a business. Then they call themselves a startup because investors come to them and say, we want to put $100 million into you. And then they start the life cycle. So I don't want to say that, so there are ecosystems out there that create startups without having community organizations. But I don't think that they are whole. I think that any city should have community organizations that are specialized on general topics, on personal development and things like this, because that will create a lot of entrepreneurship-minded DNA in your city. And that's the fertilizer for any ecosystem.
All right, so what can be done so that community organization can earn the let me say, the recognition, the respect that they deserve? Because I think, for me, I think they are the lifeblood of every entrepreneurs in any society.
So I want to get people to really get this this idea of getting a team, getting an army out there. I promise you, if you go to any city, and it doesn't matter if there's something or not, and you start building a team and you start creating an army and you do just your thing, something that you're motivated about, the people will start realizing you. Resources will come to you and you can use the resources to your community. So what you can do is just build a team, go with your motivation, and just inspire others to take leadership. Once you get there, you will turn around your ecosystem easily. Startup Grind did not exist kind of 3 years ago in Beijing. And now we are one of the leading players here for the beginning of startup communities. All the local governments want to work with us. And this is just because we created an army and they see our brand everywhere and we're tapping on so many people, so many lives. So just get involved with as many as possible and get this army rolling.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Lavrenti, you also had a question?
Yeah, sure. Hjalte, there are several questions I want to ask. The first one is that probably what do you need to pay attention to when you choose the focus of your community? The second one is how do you kind of motivate your people? Because basically in the long run, people lose their motivation. They're tired, they're burned out. It is normal for everybody. And the third one, can you please share kind of your routine to maintain the communication inside the team? Because if you don't have this communication, basically you're becoming the dictator, or you just don't know what's happening and kind of what people feel and etc. Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Wow, there are three very good questions. First one with a focus. Can you specify shortly what exactly you want to know regarding the focus? So how to choose the focus, or?
Yeah, basically what kind of details, or probably what was the framework I can use to choose the focus of the community? Because as you were talking about, like previously, it's, for example, it's probably can be general, or it's like self-development, and for example, it can be coding. But
yes. So I know you're in Yantai. One thing, just assume you're an AI geek and there's nothing going on with AI in Yantai, but you want to create your own community organization focusing on AI. How you can do this is don't take, first of all, the plan that I had, because you cannot create in 3 months a community organization that will focus on AI that quickly. What you need to do is you need to offer, so you need to endure longer as a one-person show and train and mentor people about the importance of AI. So you need to inspire and motivate people. You can do that by, I don't know, going to university and offering free classes. You see that you get 1 or 2 people involved. Or you work with your team at work. It might be that you have 2 or 3 colleagues who are also focused on AI and you want to inspire or get other people involved to exchange. That really depends on how many resources there are, what your own background is. If you do not have any specification, so you're neither AI, IoT, or any industry expert, start with something personal. And you can start with personal growth. And this is quite simple because you can educate yourself first about basics like design thinking, lean startups, anything like this. And with that, you could start a startup weekend. And with that, you start inspiring people just about how do you create a business plan, how do you build a team, how do you pitch. These are the basics. You need to give the foundation. But that really, you need to reflect then on what's your own situation, what are you interested in. And if you're, let's say, in a tech desert, but you're a tech person, you need to give it more time and you need to grow it more, more naturally. So give the people the time to learn your skills and see you as a leader. And that will probably take a year that people will see you. You can have monthly meetups, so very small ones, 3 to 5 people. You just talk about AI and train them about what it means. I hope I answered that question, but we can also have a one-on-one call later.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, sure.
The second and third one, how to motivate your people. You need to give them something they want. Everybody wants to grow. Everybody wants to learn. You need to know their names. You need to know what they're struggling with. You need to know how you can help them. Everybody needs something. It could be that the people need money. Help them with the network of the community organizations to get introduced to people that they know that that they are volunteering their time, but they're getting business introductions through you. This is something that you can do. If they are very junior, if they're coming fresh from the university, usually they want to experience what it is like to manage or to do projects. Take them on the hand, show them how project management is done. Walk them through. This is where they will stick with you and always see, are they learning more? At one point, it could be that they will become your mentor because they know other things that you do not know yet. But always have this personal touch that you will have a call with the people, you know what's going on, that you can support them with their growth. And everybody is growing differently. You also need to realize that certain people are not the right fit. So you also need to see who's good for the organization and who's not. And then sometimes you need to make the decision that you should not spend more resources on this person because they're like a black hole and taking all the energy and sucking the life out of you and the organization. That happens a lot. Be careful with that. But focus on the ones who are thankful for you taking the time to grow and empower them. And this is really like, if people listen, empower them more, train them more, give them responsibility and let them lead people as well. Because with that, you create this family and culture. Then the routine, communications. We didn't get that quite right in the beginning. And you're right, you create a dictator kind of thingy. It is easy to make decisions if you're alone. It is hard if you're 3 to 5 people. You need to have a monthly call with the other people in the leadership, and you actually need to have regular meetings with the entire team. The bigger your team becomes, and if you're an army, that is already a really big problem, because if you have 30 people, how do you get them together? We have now, after I've handed over Startup Grand Beijing, now this, if the virus wouldn't be here, this rule that once per month we have a team meeting. So we invite them usually to dinner and get everyone together. And there is a face-to-face meeting that's mandatory with all the leaders. And if you're missing out any of them, you can do that once. You cannot do that twice. You do that twice, you need to bring a good reason. If you do that thrice, you're out. And this is something that you need to involve, because if you don't have a regular updated meeting, you will die. And you will create a dictator structure.
Yeah, thanks, Jota. Very insightful.
Yeah. One more question, maybe, if anybody has one. If not, that's also good. So from my side, again, thank you so much. I hope you learned a bit. If you have any recommendations for another topic, any wish about where we should dive into, let me know. We will do next week again ecosystem basics. For those of you who have listened to that, you do not have to join again unless you like us so much. But next week is ecosystem basics. The week afterwards, we will do again community builder, and then diving into more topics like how to run events, how to get speakers, how to see who is a good speaker, who's not, and things like this. But again, if you have any suggestions for topics that we should dive into, write to me or my team, and we put these points in, and we try to share this knowledge with you. So again, thank you, was good, and hope to see you soon. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Otto.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.